The garage door rumbled open at 6:47 p.m., 7 minutes late. I wouldn't have noticed, except I'd been noticing everything for the past 11 days. Her heels clicked against the concrete. 3 steps. Pause. 2 more steps. The pattern was different, hesitant, like someone walking toward a conversation they'd been rehearsing. I was sitting in the kitchen when she came through the door. The lights were off except for the small lamp over the sink. I'd made that choice deliberately. Darkness gives you cover, but just enough light shows you the truth in someone's face. "Hey," she said, dropping her purse on the counter. Her voice had that practiced casualness people use when they're anything but casual. I didn't answer right away. Just watched her move through our kitchen like it was a stage she'd performed on 1,000 times. Refrigerator. Water bottle. Turn. Smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "How long has this been going on?" 6 words. I'd been holding them in my mouth for nearly 2 weeks, rolling them around, tasting the bitterness. And now they were out there, hanging in the air between us like smoke. She froze, water bottle halfway to her lips, and in that single moment of stillness, I had my answer. If you want to hear how this ends, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about the woman I married. Let me take you back to where this actually started, 14 days earlier, a Tuesday that felt like every other Tuesday we'd had in our 8 years of marriage. Rachel worked in pharmaceutical sales, good money, lots of travel, conferences in cities with names that all started sounding the same after a while. Denver, Dallas, Phoenix. I'd stopped keeping track years ago, trusted her completely. Why wouldn't I? We'd built something solid, or so I believed. That Tuesday, she'd left her iPad on the kitchen counter. Not unusual. She had 2 devices, sometimes 3, always synced, always pinging with notifications about quotas and client meetings and territory expansions. I'd learned to tune it out. But that morning, I was making coffee when the screen lit up with a message preview. Just a fragment. Just enough. Last night was perfect. Can't wait for Atlanta. The sender's name was just initials. Doem. My hand stopped mid-pour. Coffee spilled over the rim of the mug, pooling on the counter. I didn't notice. I was staring at those 12 words like they were written in a language I'd never learned to read. Last night, Rachel had been in Cincinnati, a 2-day conference. She'd called me from her hotel room at 9 p.m., exhausted, complaining about the keynote speaker who droned on for 90 minutes about market penetration strategies. She'd sounded tired. Genuine. Or maybe I just wanted to believe she was. I didn't touch the iPad. Didn't open it, didn't scroll, didn't dig. Some part of me wasn't ready for confirmation. Instead, I spent the next 11 days watching, observing, cataloging every small deviation from the ordinary. The way she angled her phone away when texting. The new habit of showering immediately after coming home, even on days she hadn't been to the gym. The extra attention to her appearance on travel days. Things I'd probably been missing for months, maybe longer, suddenly sharp as broken glass. You know what's worse than discovering betrayal? Knowing you're about to discover it, and having to walk through every single day pretending you don't see what's right in front of you. I started checking her location sharing. She'd never turned it off because she'd never had a reason to. Trusting couples don't monitor each other's movements. Except, now, I was. And most of the time, she was exactly where she said she'd be. Conference centers, client dinners, hotels. But there were gaps, small windows where her location would go dark for an hour, 2 hours. And when it came back online, she'd be at the hotel, texting me about how exhausting her day had been. I could have confronted her then, should have, probably. But I needed to be certain. Because once you accuse someone of breaking your marriage apart, there's no walking it back. Either you're right and everything falls apart, or you're wrong, and the accusation itself becomes the thing that breaks you. So I waited and watched. and felt something inside me harden with each passing day. Atlanta was in 3 days. I knew because she'd mentioned it casually over dinner. Another conference. 2 nights. Same routine. "You should come with me," she'd said, twirling pasta on her fork. "Make a weekend of it. We haven't traveled together in forever." The audacity of that invitation. The sheer nerve. I'd almost laughed. Instead, I'd said I couldn't get away from work. She'd nodded. Relieved. I could tell now. Reading her had become effortless once I knew what to look for. That night, after she'd fallen asleep, I did something I'd never done in 8 years. I went through her phone. Her passcode was my birthday. Still, even in the middle of carrying on an affair, she hadn't bothered to change it. I don't know if that made it better or worse. The messages were in a hidden app, one of those that looks like a calculator but opens to a completely separate interface when you punch in the right sequence. I found it because I was looking, really looking, through every app, every folder, every possibility. His name was Derek Morrison, district manager, her direct supervisor. 43. Divorced. 2 kids in another state. A face I'd probably seen at company holiday parties without ever registering it as significant. The messages went back 7 months. 7 months of good mornings, and I miss yous and explicit photos I will never be able to unsee. 7 months of planning meetups in cities where their territories overlapped. 7 months of her living a completely separate life while kissing me goodbye every morning and asking about my day every evening. There was a particular message from 2 weeks ago that made my hands shake. She'd written, "I think I'm falling in love with you. This is getting complicated." His response, "It doesn't have to be. People leave marriages every day. The question is what you want." Her response, 3 hours later, "I don't know yet. Give me time." I took screenshots, sent them to myself, deleted the evidence of my intrusion, put the phone back on her nightstand, and lay next to her in the darkness, listening to her breathe, wondering how you share a bed with someone you're actively betraying. The answer came 2 nights later. The night I opened with, the night she walked through the door at 6:47 p.m., and I asked my question, "How long has this been going on?" She set the water bottle down slowly, didn't turn to look at me right away. When she finally did, her face was carefully blank. Professional. The same expression she probably used with difficult clients. "I don't know what you're talking about." Derek Morrison, 7 months. Cincinnati, Phoenix. The calculator app on your phone. Atlanta in 3 days. Should I continue? Each fact landed like a physical blow. I watched her flinch with every one, watched the careful blankness crack and reform, crack and reform, until finally, it just shattered completely. She didn't cry. That surprised me. I'd expected tears, apologies, the whole performance. Instead, she just stood there, gripping the edge of the counter, and said, "When did you know?" Does it matter? It matters to me. 2 weeks. I've known for 2 weeks and watched you lie to my face every single day. Something shifted in her expression then. Not quite relief, but close. Like she'd been holding her breath underwater and finally broke the surface. "I was going to tell you after Atlanta," she said quietly. "I'd made up my mind. I was going to ask for a separation." That word. Separation. So clinical. So neat. Like our 8 years together could just be divided cleanly down the middle and portioned out fairly. "Were you going to tell me before or after you slept with him one last time?" Her jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "Fair?" I stood up, and the chair scraped against the floor with a sound that felt too loud. "You've been having an affair for 7 months. You've been planning a future with another man. And you want to talk about fair? You don't understand." "Then help me understand, Rachel. Explain to me how this happened." Because I've been going through every day of the past 7 months in my head, trying to figure out where I missed it. Where did I fail so badly that you needed to find someone else? And here's where she surprised me again. She didn't make excuses, didn't blame our marriage, or claim I'd neglected her, or any of the standard justifications people use when they're caught. She just said, very quietly, "You didn't fail. This isn't about you." Then what is it about? She was silent for a long time, long enough that I thought she might not answer. Finally, "It's about me wanting something that felt alive, that felt like possibility instead of routine. I love you. I do. But I'm not in love with you anymore, and I haven't been for a long time. And I met someone who made me feel things I'd forgotten I could feel. The honesty of it was almost worse than the betrayal. She wasn't even trying to soften the blow. So what now? I asked. I'll stay somewhere else tonight. We can figure out the details later. Lawyers, division of assets. All of it. She was already moving, already pivoting toward the next phase like this was a business transaction she'd strategized. Rachel. She stopped, hand on her purse. Did you ever love me? Really? She looked at me then, and for the first time that night, her eyes were wet. Yes. God, yes. That's what makes this so hard. I loved you so much I married you. I just don't anymore. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I hurt you. But I can't keep pretending. She left that night, packed a bag while I sat at the kitchen table, numb, listening to drawers open and close in our bedroom. 30 minutes later, she was gone. No dramatic exit. No slammed doors. Just the quiet click of the front door closing and the sound of her car pulling out of the driveway. I sat in that kitchen until 3 a.m., didn't move, didn't turn on more lights. Just sat there, replaying every conversation, every moment, every choice that had led us here. Here's what nobody tells you about betrayal. It rewrites your entire history. Every good memory becomes suspect. Every moment of happiness gets contaminated with the question, was she already thinking about leaving then? Was he already in the picture? Our wedding day, the trip to Italy for our 5th anniversary, the night we'd stayed up until dawn talking about having kids someday. All of it now felt like scenes from someone else's life. The next morning, I called in sick to work, spent the day doing what you're probably thinking I did. I went through everything. Photo albums, old cards, her side of the closet, looking for signs I'd missed, evidence I should have seen. Found a receipt from a hotel in Denver, date stamped 4 months ago. She'd told me she was staying at a Marriott for that conference. The receipt was from a boutique hotel downtown. Room for 2 nights. Upgraded suite. Found a charge on our credit card from a jewelry store in Phoenix. $300. I'd never received a gift from that trip. Didn't take much imagination to figure out who had. Each discovery was a small violence. Death by 1,000 cuts. My brother came over that afternoon. He didn't say much, just sat with me. Ordered pizza neither of us ate. Told me I could stay at his place if I needed to. I appreciated the offer but declined. This was my house too. I wasn't going anywhere. Rachel texted the next day. Professional. Brief. Asked if I'd be willing to meet with a mediator to discuss terms. Said she wanted to make this as painless as possible. Painless. As if there were a version of this that didn't gut you completely. I agreed to the meeting. Not because I wanted to be civil, but because I wanted it done. Wanted her out of my life as quickly and permanently as possible. The mediator was a woman in her 50s, who'd probably seen 1,000 versions of this exact scenario. She had that practiced neutrality, that careful sympathy that managed to be both comforting and utterly insufficient. Rachel had her lawyer present. I'd hired one too, on my brother's insistence. The 4 of us sat in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and discussed the dissolution of 8 years like we were negotiating a business contract. The house would be sold. Assets divided 50-50. No kids, thank God. That was the one small mercy in all of this. No children caught in the crossfire of their parents' failed promises. Rachel wanted her grandmother's ring back, the one I'd proposed with. I'd forgotten it had been a family heirloom. She asked for it so quietly, so carefully, like she knew it would hurt. And it did. But I agreed. What was I going to do with it anyway? The whole process took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of paperwork and signatures and polite exchanges about furniture and kitchen appliances. 6 weeks of dismantling a life we'd built together. I saw her one last time. Moving day. She showed up with Derek and 2 friends to collect her half of everything. I made myself scarce, went to my brother's, couldn't stomach watching her pack up her life with him standing there like he'd won some kind of prize. When I came back that evening, the house felt cavernous. Empty spaces where furniture used to be. Bare walls where photos had hung. The physical absence matching the emotional void. I stood in the living room and tried to remember what it had felt like when this place had been full. When it had been ours. Couldn't quite conjure it. The past was already blurring, becoming abstract. That was 14 months ago. I'm not going to tell you I'm completely healed because that would be a lie. There are still days when something small triggers a memory. A song, a restaurant, the smell of her perfume on a stranger passing by. But here's what I've learned. Betrayal doesn't destroy you. It reveals you. Shows you what you're made of when everything you thought was solid turns out to be smoke. I sold the house, took the money, and bought a smaller place across town. New neighborhood, new routine. Started therapy, which I probably should have done years ago regardless. Picked up hobbies I'd let slide. Reconnected with friends I'd neglected. Learned to be alone without being lonely. Rachel married Derek 8 months ago. I know because a mutual acquaintance mentioned it. Thought I should hear it from someone rather than stumble across it online. I appreciated the gesture. Felt nothing when I heard it. No anger. No jealousy. Just a distant sort of curiosity about whether she'd learned anything or if she was just repeating the same pattern with someone new. Not my problem anymore. Here's the thing about asking, how long has this been going on? You're not really asking for a timeline. You're asking for an explanation that will make sense of the pain. Trying to find the exact moment where everything went wrong so you can go back and fix it in your head. But there's no single moment. Just a series of choices, small compromises, conversations not had, needs not voiced. Distance that grows so gradually you don't notice until you're standing on opposite sides of a canyon. Could I have done things differently? Probably. Could she have? Definitely. But we didn't. And now we're here. I'm dating again. Nothing serious yet. Taking it slow. Learning to trust again is harder than I expected. But I'm getting there. And when I'm ready, when I find someone who's worth the risk, I'll know what questions to ask, what signs to watch for, what I'm willing to accept, and what I'm not. Because the thing about surviving betrayal is this. You come out the other side, knowing exactly what you deserve, and you stop settling for anything less. So if you're watching this, and you've been where I was, sitting in your kitchen in the dark waiting for answers you already know, I'll tell you what I wish someone had told me. It gets better. Not immediately. Not easily. But eventually. You survive. You rebuild. You become someone stronger than you were before. And one day, you realize the person who left was actually doing you a favor. They just freed you to find something real. Subscribe if this story hit home. Drop a comment if you've been through something similar. And remember, the end of one chapter is just the beginning of another. You're going to be okay, I promise.